So I would like to just start with presenting our panelists. And I'm gonna ask Rebecka to start, if you'd like to tell everybody who you are.
Yeah, of course. So hi, I'm Rebecka. I am one of the co-founders of Twirl, a data orchestration startup based in Stockholm, Sweden. My background's in data science and machine learning. I used to work at iSettle for many years as a machine learning engineer and then leading the machine learning team. I've also worked as Tink as head of data and analytics. There I led 3 teams doing data engineering and analytics. So I've kind of been in various data roles, both as an individual contributor and as a leader. And I'm super excited about talking about today's topic. And I guess I can mention I was also part of starting WiDS Sweden many years ago. I'm no longer sort of actively involved in organizing, but I'm super excited to be here as a panelist.
Rebecka is one of the founders of this whole thing, so super honored to have you here. Priyanka, please.
Yeah. Hi. Thank you for inviting me here today. I'm currently working as a product manager with the Volvo cars, and I work primarily with data over there. And even in my previous roles, I've worked quite a lot with data, both with automating operational processes that use a lot of data, as well as working with other software-related products as well. And I'm primarily from India. I just moved to Sweden 3 years ago. So really happy to be here.
Great. So today we are going to talk about the recipe for a successful data platform, which is a huge topic. I'm going to be the panel moderator, and I would love for the audience to post questions in the chat during. We will sprinkle questions from the audience if you have them during the talk, but we will dedicate more time at the end. So I'm going to start by throwing out a question, and I will be asking questions first, but then let's just have a conversation. So I want to start by asking Priyanka, what is a data platform and what is a successful data platform?
Yeah, sure. So I feel a data platform is everything from that allows you to ingest the data from all of your operational systems into a common space, a data warehouse kind of an ecosystem wherein you can make the data available for different use cases. It can be for analytics, it can be for operational purposes, or it can be for, let's say, building dashboards, deriving insights, and so on. And I believe in order to be for a data platform to be successful, you need to ensure that whatever data products you're able to build on top of it, they are interoperable, they are discoverable, meaning it's easy to find the products that you build, and then they should be compliant, meaning that especially in Europe, all of the GDPR restrictions that we have, I think it's really necessary that we follow all of those as well when we are trying to pick which platform or the way we are planning to build the platform. Along with it, I think the access rules also matter quite a bit, because you cannot really give access to personally identifiable or the sensitive information to all of your stakeholders. So the way you restrict the data is also really important. And along with it, I feel that it should be trustworthy as well, meaning in terms of the data has to be fresh. It cannot be that, and there has to be strong monitoring rules behind that. Though there can be like a lot of differences when it comes to software building versus the data products that you build. But I think some of the key things are, of course, they're like monitoring and everything still stays. Your stakeholders should be able to feel or rather trust the data. It has to be updated regularly, and you should be able to inform them right on time. Let's say a data pipeline breaks, then you should be the first ones to know, rather than your stakeholders coming to you and telling you that, oh, there is something wrong with your data or something that you're exposing to us. So I feel these are some of the key parameters that define what a successful data platform is.
Yeah. Rebecka, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think I mean I agree with most of this, but I guess what I would add is I I think ultimately what a data platform is, it's like a way to make people productive. It's like a set of tools that others use to build whatever it is they're building. I think data products is a good phrase, but it can mean so many different things. So I'm like always a little hesitant to use it. But I think that's what any platform is, and I don't think it's specific to data. I think there are like platform teams are common in software engineering in general. So I think that's an important sort of aspect to consider when discussing data platforms. That a platform in general is intended to kind of make others productive, to kind of give you sort of benefits of scale by kind of fixing problems once and for all, instead of having all the individual people that are building stuff on top of it and building applications, instead of like reinventing the wheel all the time.
Yeah. We're gonna introduce Gabriela that's managed to join us now. Thank you, and I'm glad we could sort it out. So we have started already, but we would like you to introduce yourself, please.
Sounds good. Sorry about that. Yes, so Gabriela Ayres, and I'm originally from Brazil. I moved to Sweden in 2010 to study a master in applied statistics. And then I joined the fintech industry, always working with credit risk analytics. And in 2020, I joined Volvo Cars, also within credit risk. But then the need of accessing data in an easier way drove me to the position that I work today, which is data product manager. So in our team, we enable data from the sources to be ingested in Snowflake, and then customized to cover the analytics user cases. And then we are allocated, we serve some specific domain areas within commercial. Yeah, and we have been through a data transformation officially since April last year. So I'm very interested in those topics about transformation and data platforms. So I'm happy to join here today.
Awesome. So before you joined, we were talking about what is a data platform and what is a successful data platform. But I think I want to ask another question. We can maybe direct it to you, Gabriela. Could you name one common reason that you see data platform initiatives fail?
Yeah, I think it fails. The number one is when the value of it's just not added to the business. So when you have a perfect technically assembled platform, but nobody's using, or people don't trust it, or is not covering the real user cases. So I think that's the number one. And I think to build a platform, it's important to try to work on the silos and to make this interconnectable, so the interoperable models. And it needs to be as simple as possible. I think it's also considered a failure if it's too complex and it serves only a small proportion of the users, those that are higher skilled. I think one challenge is also on the alignments. I think people have very different opinions on how to solve it technically, or maybe who is driving it are just people with strong technical background, or maybe it's the opposite. So I think those are reasons why it will fail.
Any other of our panelists have any reasons why they fail?
I would. I agree with all these. These are sort of common problems. I think coming back to the perspective I shared earlier of like the point of like a platform being like enabling others. I would suggest as like a definition of failure being like if you invest more time or money or whatever into or actually like more time into your platform than what you gain in like productivity improvements for the people using it, then it's a failure. Because that's again not specific to data platforms, but it's specific to the idea of like a platform approach. And I think that's probably the most common way that data platforms fail, is they sort of a lot of sort of resources get poured into them, and it doesn't quite sort of enable the productivity increase that that would be needed to make up for it. And I think it's related to what Gabriela just said. Like it's common to kind of have them a little like over engineered, meaning you sort of spend a lot of sort of effort upfront into kind of building beautiful solutions from an engineering perspective, but not having them used enough to kind of make up for that investment, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I would like to add to it just like a different flavor. Like if there is lack of data literacy in the company, you can end up building a tool, but then it can end up not being used at all if people don't even think that there is value that you're going to get out of the platform that is there. If they believe that data is not really the key to success, then that can also be one of the reasons why it can fail.
This is you mentioned value, Priyanka. How do you measure value of the platform?
I would say the ROI that you're getting out of the platform in terms of whether it's helping you automate a few things, or maybe let's say, for example, I work a lot with the marketeers, and then we have to use the data platform to build a lot of data products which can cater to some of the marketing needs. And then if we are seeing that we are getting a lot of value out of those marketing campaigns, I mean, of course, the stakeholders that we have are like internal stakeholders. We are not really talking to the external clients. But then let's say earlier we were not even able to run those campaigns, which are bringing in, let's say, X% growth to the business, which is possible only because of the data products that we have built so far. Then that, I would say, is one way to measure how successful your data platform is. To see how much value it's adding to your business, or to see how easy it has become to do a few things, marketing just being one of those examples. It can be to improve your sales funnels as well. Let's say you're able to track the leads better. Now you know what is leading, what are some of the bottlenecks in the sales flows, and then you're able to fix those business processes as well. So basically, looking at what are the different touch points where you're adding to the business value. And then if you can attribute that to the data platform, then I would say not all of them would be in terms of monetary values, but it can be other aspects as well.
I would like to add one thing that I heard yesterday that I found very interesting. It's an alternative definition of ROI, and it's a risk of ignoring it. So sometimes it can be quite tough to get to a number to calculate the return on investment. But if we think about what if we don't, then what you're and just ignore that. What is where you're gonna head to as an organization, given that data is that important. So it's also maybe not like to justifying every single initiative and investment that you want to have, but definitely on the like in general, like to have a roadmap and to prioritize on the journey for data.
Rebecka, do you have anything to add on that topic?
No, I mean, I think ROI is such an important and also such a hard concept for all kinds of data work. I don't think it's specific to like data platforms or data engineering. I think it's hard across all data disciplines, but I also think it's incredibly important. I think it's something that sort of most data teams think too little about. I don't have any sort of solutions to it. I just think it's hard and important. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this in sort of the various roles I've had. When I was at iSettle and leading the machine learning team, it was like super, super important for me to think about like what value my team was creating. But then it was machine learning, so we could look at it from sort of a per project basis and look at the project and, you know, talk about like what's a successful outcome if we manage, you know, on this level, what does that mean? And we could do like back of the envelope kind of calculations because there were applications. But then when I moved on to sort of leading data engineering teams, that's much harder. It's much harder if what you're doing is platform work. And that's kind of what led me to what I mentioned mentioned in the beginning, the idea that you kind of end up having to measure like productivity gains in others, because ultimately you're like serving other teams. That's your reason of existence. And that makes ROI calculations both difficult, but honestly also like hard to get to add up. That was my main learning from trying to do it, is like you need to have like a pretty like the ratio of people building the platform to people using it needs to be pretty like different. Like you need a lot more people using it than building it, or else you need to give them huge productivity gains. You need to, you know, cut out like 4 hours of work per day for someone if you have sort of a ratio of like almost as many people on both sides. And that's hard, is my point. And then of course, like what most, I think, teams or companies end up doing, and me included, is making a case that, you know, we're investing for the future. So like right now it's not adding up, but in the future it will. But that's also hard. Like how do you know it will pay off, and how can you like estimate when it will pay off and in which ways?
Yeah. We have a question from an audience member on this topic. What would be a good way to calculate return of investment in this project? And specifically, do you have an example? It could be interesting to hear an example from the real world. Does anyone have a concrete example?
Maybe I can add over there. One of the stakeholders that I mentioned earlier was marketing, whom we closely work with, at least in Volvo Cars. And then one of the examples could be the campaigns that we recently launched around one of the new features that was launched in the Volvo Cars app. And then in terms of tracking ROI, that was one of the important aspects as well. Like how do we look at how many customers were actually buying that product before we rolled out a specific campaign, which is possible just because of the segmentation capabilities and the data products that we were able to build out of the data platform that we had recently created. And when we started looking at how that campaign was really doing, almost like 90% of the sales were coming because of the marketing campaigns that we were able to run. And we could easily see that, like for the last few days, we had to shut down the campaign because there were some technical issues. And then we saw that the sales were almost close to zero. So I think it's not really a good situation to be in. But then those are the times when we know that, okay, whatever value we are bringing to the table, that's really important. And that can help you predict the return on investment as well. You know that you're doing a good job and you're putting your efforts in the right direction as well. You're helping your company grow.
Any other? Gabriela, maybe you have some examples?
I haven't focused so much, to be honest, trying to calculate returning investments. What we have tried, like once working with credit risk and analytics, so it's like the models that we're able to produce with the data that we now can access, compared to what if we would just have used the credit scores that come directly from the credit bureaus. So those are kind of things. But now that we're working in the team that is enabling data for others to use and to bring value, then I guess the best way would be to go case by case with them and see what they think has a high potential of return on investment, and then calculate in a similar manner that Priyanka mentioned as well.
Yeah. On a related note, we had in one of our talks recently, Charlotte was talking about dashboards, among other things, and the organization had a value using a dashboard, and then they stopped having that value. How can you calculate return of investment of a dashboard? And when I say dashboard, of course, I mean any kind of data that somebody is just looking at and making decisions from. How can you calculate value from that, or return of investment?
Yeah, I think that's incredibly hard, if not impossible. I've like when I've tried to kind of look at value coming from analytics organizations, which I think is often the type of team or organization that has sort of dashboards as the outcome, I like to think about like what, like they often say, you know, we're producing insights, which I think is valid, but then I try to focus on measuring insights. So like how many insights are produced, and maybe not like the number, because I don't think that's important, but like insights that have a significant business impact. And I think those are quite rare, to be honest. I think, yeah, everyone wants to think that you do this all the time, and all the time people make really important decisions and achieve insights that are super important to the business. I think they're rare. In my experience, they're rare, but they can be very, very valuable when they do appear. And so that does make it possible to basically keep track of them, because you'll know of them. But I think to find out, like, you'll also have to talk to your users, you have to talk to the PMs and so on. But I think I can't give an example to make it more specific. I think like a PM that's like, how many users signed up in France yesterday? Like, it's very unlikely that having the answer to that question is going to give them an insight that impacts an important decision they make, or that has a significant impact on the bottom line. That's very unlikely. But it might spark something that sparks something else that sparks something else, which ends up leading to an insight that has an impact. One of my favorite examples of this is from Tink, where one of the analysts I worked with did an analysis on, how do I describe this without going into too much detail? It was related to people using sort of the Tink product to connect to their bank accounts. They were like searching for the name of their bank, and he did analysis on like what people searched for, so like the search strings, and realized people struggled with like basic things. Like they would put like the bank would have like 2 words in the name, and they would put them in reverse order and get no like hits. So they couldn't find their bank because they had like inverted the order of the words in the bank's name. Like he found that out through sort of analysis, and it like led to this idea that, you know, here are some basic things we can do to improve our algorithm for when users search that will significantly increase conversion rates. It was like very easy to, like, once he had done all this work, which of course was hard, and you know, it was a big project and it was like a big effort, but it led to a very, very clear outcome. Like if we make these changes to the search algorithm, our conversion rates will go up by X. That I think is like a fantastically valuable insight and a perfect example of like great analytics work. But going all the way there and all the way to like finding something that's actionable and that can lead to like measurable value is super rare. I think you'll typically have to do like 10 or 20 or 30 or 100 analyses like this before you reach the one that has like significant impact. So yeah, sorry, long and rambling answer, but I think that's a better way to measure value of the outcome from analytics work than to think about the value of an individual dashboard. Now I'll stop rambling. Sorry.
And just to add to your example of the PM, it's important that he has the knowledge that he has this amount of sales or whatever KPI he was looking at. So how do you measure the knowledge? Because without that, how can he make decisions? Maybe it's not this that will lead to an insight that is going to be a breakthrough, but he kind of need to know that anyway.
Yeah. Priyanka, I'm going to give you a question from the audience on the same vein here. From Suela, how can one ensure that the data platform will resist time and continue to bring value?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, because our requirements or needs of the company keep evolving. It's not the same always, depending on what the focus of the company is. And I think that's why we need to reevaluate what do we really need, at least once every year, to see whether we are going in the right direction or not. Whatever we have built is fit for future or not as well, because it might happen that you are focusing on a few things in like last couple of years, but now you have to steer the ship in a completely different direction. Might mean that you're shutting down some businesses, you're growing something completely different, you're coming up with new strategy. So it might mean that you're changing your data strategy as well. It might mean that you have to change your data platform also a bit. Maybe you have to move away from that and then you have to build something completely new as well. Or maybe the kind of data that's going to flow into the platforms, that might also change. Maybe till now you were just focusing on analytical data, and tomorrow you want to start looking at real-time data events like the web behavior data, app behavior data, or for that matter, something that comes in via Kafka. So your data needs, I think, they always keep evolving. So you have to keep that in mind. You cannot say that whatever you have decided today is going to be the case even like, let's say, 2 years from now, because we are in like constant evolution. So I think we have to have that in the back of our mind. We cannot say that whatever we have decided today is right. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think if I can add something to this, I think one way to sort of future-proof your platform is to just know that like the technology will change. It changes really, really fast. Like I'm not using anywhere near the same tools today as I was 2 years ago or 4 years ago or 6 years ago. It like changes very, very quickly. So kind of knowing that like whatever I decide today that my stack will look like and what tools I will use, knowing it will almost certainly change because technology evolves and it happens quickly, which means designing your platform so that it can account for that, so that you can kind of replace your, I don't know, storage to some other kind of storage, or switch from, I don't know, Spark to Beam or whatever becomes the new thing. Like to basically not lock yourself into like a specific way of doing things, but building your platform to be modular so that you can replace different parts and still keep the cohesive structure, because I think that's much of what the value that a platform typically brings is that cohesive structure and kind of saying, here's how we do things, here's the way that you do task X, Y, and Z and the recommended way of doing this, and here's, I don't know, a template or an example you can follow, that sort of thing, making sure that those are somewhat agnostic to the underlying technologies, because the underlying technology will for sure change.
Yeah, and I agree with that about the design of the platform, and I think the it's like the use case that have to define how the platform should look like, but you have the user cases that you know now. So I think we also, when we're working on the design, we should also understand, but how can this develop in the mid term, let's say. So let's say your user cases, they are always like to have the data refreshed every, like once per day, it's enough. But okay, what if we have the need to have like once per hour? So how can we develop this so that it's going to be an easy change? This kind of scenarios that we should think about in the design phase.
Yeah. We have another question from the audience. And we're going to steer away from value a little bit and talk about now audience member wondering, what are the current trends in data engineering, data platforms you are excited about?
I think one of the things is AI. I think that's in all the domains, right? It's not just data, but everywhere. How you can use AI to make advancements in the space of data as well. I think that's really exciting, and yeah, I'm looking forward to getting to work more in that area as well.
I think on the data platform aspect is the democratization. So I think the platforms should be designed so that it will enable people with different backgrounds to still be able and get insights. So yeah, AI plays a big role on that. That you can maybe just ask a question and then it's connected to the data model and then you get an answer. So I think that's what I'm looking forward.
One thing.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I just want to say, one thing I'm super excited about is I see more and more companies these days use their data platforms not only to power analytics, but also to build products and like customer-facing products or like business-critical products on top of. I think that's super cool and super exciting. And I also think this is sort of parts of the solution to the ROI equation thing. I think the sort of more use cases you can support on one platform, the easier it is to kind of get good ROI on it. And I think like data platforms, like they're a gold mine for companies that want to build customer facing products that are smart and that use data. So that could be like recommendations, or it could be, I mean, there's so many different things, and it's so company specific what that would look like. But I think they're like most companies that started building data platforms, they built them for analytics. That was kind of the reason that they started. And then now more and more are realizing they can use them for other things. And I think that's super exciting. And I think it's definitely sort of the way to go and the future. So that's, I think, the main trend I'm excited about.
Awesome. Gabriela, I'm going to throw a question at you here. We're going to go back a little bit to the recipe for a successful data platform. I'd like to know your thoughts on when should a company in their journey invest in a data platform. So let's say you are, for example, running you have a startup, and your business is not data. It has nothing to do with analytics or data. You're doing something else. Should you invest in a data platform immediately, or should you wait until a certain size? When does it make sense? You are muted.
I think we need to understand a bit better in which directions your user cases will go. So I wouldn't heavily invest in a data platform from the scratch without knowing that. So I think it's also a way to get the buy-in from management on this investment. It's maybe to work on like smaller POCs and really try to show, especially because not always the management understand how you can add value with this investment. And then at some point, when you understand a bit better what your short and mid-term landscape will look like on the need, so on the use cases, then I think that's the time to start searching for.
I would like to add something to that. I think it depends when you exactly want to invest in a data platform, but then building the data culture in the company, I think that needs to happen from day one. Because data, I think it's almost like if you miss out on storing the data from the beginning, it's like you're missing a huge opportunity, because it can happen that you end up buying a big platform, let's say 5 years after you start your company, but then you would have already started getting some insights into what customers are really looking for, what the trends are, and if you're not really storing that data from the beginning, you would miss out on that gold mine of data when you actually decide to invest in a platform. Then you would start looking at the value from the day you actually buy that platform. So I think it's necessary that you have the data culture, you store the data in some shape or form, and then later on, when you're really clear on what use case you want to use that data for, you can use it that way. But you should not lose the data, at least. That's there. Like rather basically have some kind of a storage and just store it in whatever shape or form, and later on you can transform it in the way you want.
Very well said. I agree.
Yeah, any thoughts?
No, I agree. I think there are ways to sort of start storing data without necessarily investing into a platform, but this becomes like a definition question also. What's a platform? And I don't think like, I don't want to go into the nitty gritty details of that, but I really agree about the value of sort of storing data and doing it before having specific use cases in mind, because you don't know what you'll come up with later, and having historic data is super important. So I really agree. Coming back to the question, I would basically say like definitely don't invest in a platform if you don't have use cases, like and let the use cases drive the platform. I think a mistake many companies make is they think first we'll build a platform and then we'll think about the use cases. First we have to have the platform and the foundation in place. I think that's a mistake, because I think you risk designing it for the wrong types of use cases. I think it's much better to build for a very thin or like MVP version of a platform and have a use case and iterate on it, than to first build a platform and then think about the use cases.
On that note, as a big enterprise, it can be hard to let the organization run free. You often need to have some sort of central data platform. How can you ensure that one central data platform fits all the use cases?
See me and Gabby smiling.
Okay. Maybe many are feeling like a little recognition.
Yeah, we can relate so much to that. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a bit tricky to know what will really work and what will not if it's like a large organization. But then I think it's always good to have some centralized strategy and some kind of central governance in place. Otherwise, it will be like everybody's going in a different direction. And then not all of the data pieces that are made available, they don't really talk to each other. So everybody can come up with like a different ID or from their systems, and then you're never able to link them together. So let's say you're trying to build something like a customer 360 in which you want different data pieces to talk to each other, though the operational systems can be different, but they can be tied together in some way. Then it's okay. Like everybody can make the data available in different ways, but then at least at the end of the day, you're able to tie them together. But if you don't even have that driving data strategy, central data strategy, then we might miss the value in this entire journey. It might take a few years for all of the data producers in the company to make the data available. But then at the end of the day, you would come to know that, okay, everybody has tried to build it in a different way. And then you're never able to come up with that customer 360 or being able to tie what the customer is trying to do in the ecosystem. Then you're never going to get the value of the data platform that you had thought of.
Yeah, I think a very important point to that is to have a strong drive, like someone really leading this, and a very good communication and collaboration. And I think that's super challenging because from my experience, the tech side tends to be on the tech side, having tech discussions, and then the domains or the business, they are in the other one. So I think it's even harder from my experience in Sweden, that I think is this feeling that everybody needs to agree. So instead, as this never happened, so people just start building things separately. So instead of like, pick the fight and compromise, and then okay, that's the single way we're going, that's the strategy. No, they just let's just do something else here, and then that's how you create a mess. Um, and I was yesterday in a conference about data and analytics, and there was this guy. I mean, I don't want to generalize, of course, but this guy from Finland, and then he said, "Yeah, it's hard to say no. It's a lot harder to say no, but sometimes you need to do, and you need to say no. That's how we're gonna go." And I say, "Yeah, it's have worked in a Finnish organization. I understand the difference, because you can just say and then you go for it. But then in a big corporation, the cultural aspects, it's very difficult, I think. So I think the key here is to communicate, that the decisions are communicated to all the layers, and that people are also heard. They feel heard. So then once you feel heard, then you say, okay, then they are taking into consideration my side as well. Then maybe I don't need to create something from scratch. And we need to learn how to compromise as human beings in general. Yeah.
We have I'm just reflecting on this sort of from my perspective today. So I mean, now I don't build sort of an internal data platform at any company, but like my company builds a product that's used by a lot of different data teams. So it's kind of a similar type of challenge, where we want it to be relevant across a lot of different use cases, and they're very different, and people have different needs. And we have a sort of design principle that I think can be useful in lots of other scenarios also, like for internal data platforms as well, which is we try to always provide a golden path and an escape hatch. So a golden path, that's like a recommended way of doing things. It should be it should minimize decision making. It should give you sort of guardrails and a guideline for how to do a certain task. And it should sort of fit for like 90% of use cases. It should be a good fit. And their users get lots of help and yeah, guidance along the way, and don't have to make a lot of upfront decisions, and don't sort of risk, shooting themselves in the foot kind of. So it should feel like you're sort of holding someone's hand. But then we also make sure to build in escape hatches into the product, which is for when you don't want to be on the golden path, or it doesn't fit your use case. You're trying to do something that doesn't fit in. And we think it's incredibly important that you don't get stuck when that happens. So we don't build a product that just has golden paths. So the escape hatch is kind of a way of saying, like, your golden path doesn't work for me, and now I just want to kind of be unstuck and do my thing. And I realize I'm going to have to do more work. It'll be harder. It requires, more technical expertise and like decision making and all of that, but it's worth it because otherwise I'm stuck. And I think this applies to a lot of sort of platforms, and again, not just data, but I think this idea of trying to offer both of those, I think, is valuable. I think golden paths are valuable because they save so much time and energy from your users, so that they don't have to use the escape hatch solution all the time and design things from bottoms up. But it's super important to not just build an internal platform that's full of golden paths, because then you'll have super frustrated users that go build their own thing on the side anyway, and that don't use your platform because you're not offering any solution to them when they need to go off of the golden path.
Interesting stuff. We're gonna try to focus a bit more now on the question from the audience for the last 15 minutes. So if audience has questions, let them come. So we can talk, we can ask kind of on the same topic, so that fits well. What strategies have you found most effective in building cross-functional alignment and ensuring ongoing engagement or excitement from stakeholders? Priyanka.
Yeah, so I think there is like a strong need for collaboration in terms of having those regular things, or aligning in terms of what really works for different stakeholders. Because otherwise it can be really difficult, at least in the bigger organizations. In a small organization, it is really easy to align on what the needs are, and then you build in that direction. But then when it comes to bigger organizations, and with like a lot of cross-functional teams, it is really important to have that common forum where all of these data teams, or who are closely involved working on the platform, to come together and to discuss the needs of their stakeholders, because we can be just one of the teams in that ecosystem who's working with some of those stakeholders. But to know what others in the company are really thinking about, or what their real needs are, so that we can come up with like a common solution or a common approach. I mean, not everybody has to do it the same way, like we were discussing earlier. At least have those common principles in place. I think that's really important to collaborate. It cannot be that a team from research, R&D, maybe they have different needs altogether. But then from data ecosystem standpoint, it's good to sync with others, let's say from finance teams or from commercial teams, to see like what is it or how is it that they are building, so that you are all aligned and you build the platform in a similar way, or rather use the platform in a similar way. I think that's something that can be helpful, at least for the bigger organizations, to have those regular things.
Yeah, I think it's from my perspective, we as a data enablement team, being very close to the domain, so understanding the data, being close to stakeholders, not only implement what they're asking, but also trying to understand their world. It doesn't increase only the engagement, but also the quality of what we deliver. And we have also promote demo sessions. So when we are supporting our stakeholders with some requests, Sometimes we are just enabling some data, and we don't know exactly what this will turn into. So we ask them, we invite them to come to our demo sessions and then to show to us the outcome. This is something we started recently, and I really want to promote, because I think it's a way of learning, and then to also see where your work went, and they also feel appreciated. So it's a positive in different aspects.
Brought that up because this was like the first thing that came to mind for me, like in strategies for building cross-functional alignment and ensuring ongoing engagement, like demos. That's like across all the roles I've had at different companies and different teams. Demos is sort of my go-to for this. I think demos are fantastic, and I think they achieve a lot that's much harder to do in syncs or alignment or planning or like that type of forum, because demos are so much more tangible. You're like showing something real. It's like it's less hypothetical and more real, and people tend to like give much more good feedback. They can kind of see a demo of one use case and immediately imagine another use case that's of interest to them. And it's a perfect opportunity to get feedback if you sort of demo, like do an early demo of something you're developing, and you kind of show it to your users, and basically ask, like, shall I continue? Is this something that will be useful for you? And sometimes it's great because you get awesome encouragement. Sometimes it's great because they tell you, actually, no, this is useless to me, and you save yourself a lot of time not having to kind of finish it. So demos, I think, are fantastic, just as you say.
I'd like to add just one point to the demos, because I feel demos are important as well, just to know what others are trying to build. And it might be the case that you are trying to build the same thing, then you avoid redoing stuff. So in that case as well, I think it's really important from that standpoint to avoid the rework, especially in bigger organizations. That happens quite a few times than we can imagine, that there are 5 teams trying to do the same thing, trying to build the same model, let's say customer lifetime value. You come to any company, and then there will be like 10 different teams who would raise their hand saying that we are building the same thing. So yeah, it can help avoid those situations as well.
Yeah. We are going to take another question from the audience. There's a lot of curiosity in the audience since we have these experts on stage about the topic of career. We have some questions around that. So one of them is how to future-proof your career, and I guess within the data space, as technology is evolving so fast. Should you specialize or try to be platform agnostic? Gabriela?
I'm not that technical, but from what I have seen, I think you need to be flexible to learn different things. And I think it also depends on your profile. Do you want to, work in different organizations? Then maybe you will be exposed to different technologies, or maybe you want to settle for a while somewhere. So I'm not like maybe I'm not the right person to say that. But one thing I wanted to say is that I think more and more the soft skills are going to become more and more relevant. So in our case, how we work with the data engineers, they take a lot of ownership once they are working on something. So they don't have like someone translating anything, or booking meetings to them with stakeholders if they have questions. So it's kind of, once you're assigned to like a task or a topic, then you are in it completely. So of course then communication skills are very important, and other types of soft skills to reach that. And I have seen that this has become like a good way also to increase their motivation, because then they feel like into it more. It's like they're entrepreneurs in that. Yeah.
I would totally agree to what Gabby just said. I'm also a product manager, so I don't really get into like specific technologies per se, because then I would become redundant as well, because technology changes so often. So it's always good to keep yourself updated, and a lot of technical stuff, they can be automated. Maybe something that you're doing today doesn't really exist 5 years from now, because it can easily be automated with the new tools and technology that would come in. So soft skills, as Gabby said, I think those will always stay, at least in the near future. So it's good to keep those in mind, and at the same time keep evolving as the technology evolves.
Yeah, I agree. Like, don't get married to any piece of technology. It will for certain like be replaced. So don't focus on that. Don't be focus on becoming an expert in a particular framework or method or way of working. Stay curious. So not only sort of aware of what exists, but like curious, like look for new ways to use tools and like try them, experiment, like kind of stay ahead instead of. So I guess it's a way of like trying to stay ahead, explore new tools, try them out, experiment, talk to people, go to conferences, that sort of thing. And then I would also say, like, when I like the sort of most senior and sort of the best people I've worked with, what they're really good at is like patterns. Like they know good patterns for how to work, like how to structure machine learning projects or how to design platforms or whatever it is that they're specialized in. They're good at the patterns. And then it doesn't matter if like the actual components get replaced, you know, what type of, if it's like a credit risk model or a marketing optimization, and it doesn't matter if the platform is on Databricks or on GCP, like to focus on the patterns, and that's hard, and it requires, you know, it takes time and effort and experience, but like remembering that that's the value that you gain as you sort of gain experience is you become good at seeing those patterns and designing platforms or models or whatever it is in good ways. That's the thing that you evolve, rather than, you know, detailed SQL syntax knowledge or whatnot. Like that can also be nice to have, but that's not the thing that's going to like significantly help you in your career in the long term.
Super great advice. We're going to take another question from the audience. How far are companies implementing AI in their business by now? Perhaps you can, if you know of any real life use cases, have heard of anything, would you like to share?
Maybe I can just comment on that. So I think there are, in Volvo Cars, there are different teams spread within the organization that are experimenting AI in different use cases. So I still think it's in the experimentation phase. They usually partner with some business area and they try to solve a specific use case. But it's still on the, I think, research and ad hoc basis. And within the business areas, I don't see much, or maybe not at all around. Yeah, I think still, I think it depends on the maturity of the data that was discussed here in the previous talk. And I think we're still in the beginning of the journey of where is the data? How can we access the data? How can we join them together? I think we're still a lot on this focus on solving these sort of problems.
Yeah, I would just like to add to that. I think in the data space, I haven't seen like a lot of stuff being done in AI because I think it's more scientific and like mathematical. I think most of the AI initiatives, they're focused on creative stuff, be it creating marketing, let's say the images that you need for marketing, or like translations. I've seen, at least in a lot of companies, including Volvo Cars, where we use AI for translations, which is more on the creative side. Like, of course, there are nuances, specific language related or market specific nuances, which are included or which need to be still proofread by copywriters and so on. But at least the base cut, the first cut of what you get out of like an AI engine, I think that's pretty good as well. I don't know how it will go when it comes to analytics. There are, of course, like small bots that have been created. You can just write a query, and then, or rather, you can just ask, can you give me the sales from this month and so on, and then such kind of simple queries. I think it's easy to automate using AI, but I'm not really sure. Like, let's say a model, an analytical model, which can predict how much, let's say, in the credit space, if you want to predict how much loan a particular person should get. I don't know we are there yet or not. I have not seen companies do that, at least as of now. But I think I'm sure AI technology will also evolve, and we will reach that stage pretty soon as well.
Just to add on the context, there was an initiative that was called, I think, Data Buddy. So it was about asking what was the sales last month, or this kind of questions. But like, it depends on the data. You need to have the data foundation for that to be able to train, right? And I think that's one of the biggest challenges, why this hasn't been like more and more like tried by in other parts of the organization.
All right. We're going to finish off with a question from the audience, and can I have a quick little answer from each one of you? So, how do you stay up to date with and inspired within your domain, data tech? Rebecka?
Primarily events, that's my favorite way. Talking to other people, like definitely like going to meetups and conferences and listening to panels or talks, but even more importantly, talking to other people at events. That's like one of my primary and favorite ways. I think it's just based on sort of how I learn, but I find that to be super useful. Talking to other people, asking about their experiences, and just knowledge sharing. But yeah, also conferences, meetups, there's so many things online. You can really see sort of world-class content on YouTube, like many of the best and coolest conferences put all the talks online. So there's plenty there. I recommend also watching talks together with other people, because that way you can discuss and reflect, and watch them with your colleagues, because you'll have shared context and ideas on how you can apply that. But I also read, like, there are some blogs I follow. I don't know which ones. If you haven't read Ben Stansel, I'm a big fan. I think I don't always agree with him, but I think he has many interesting thoughts. It's very sort of on the philosophical level, not so practical. Yeah, I wish I could give more specific resources, but mainly I would say talk to other people, find people from other companies that you can interact with and discuss with and learn from.
I think those are some of the easiest things to do, because talking to people, I think that's the best way to learn, because they would have already experimented with something and you're basically learning from their learnings. So I think that's the easiest or the simplest thing to do. I think LinkedIn these days have become a great tool as well. There are so many nice posts that you can get to read, and what they have done in their own companies, and how different tools have helped them. So I feel that's also has become a great learning platform, apart from blogs and going through YouTube videos and stuff. So, yeah.
To me, it's definitely, I also enjoy the social aspect of joining events and talking to people. But I also learn a lot from my team, those that are more technical. So I learn a lot from them. They also like to share links with new things going on. And also from the other parts, in other parts of the organization. And I think just like being curious and sometimes ask, oh, what are you working with? And then it opens like a box. So I think it's a fun way also to, when you meet someone by the coffee machine. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. And feel free, everyone, to share your resources in the chat. Also, audience members, if you have any resources, please share them in the chat. We are done with our panel. Thank you so much, everyone, for really interesting takes. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.